This interview was made possible by our friends at Lendio. Visit lendio.com, making small business loans simple. Hey everyone, I'm Mike Sullivan. Thanks for joining me today on mo.com. With me today is Patrick Chakura of Fine and Dandy Games. Patrick is a long-time iOS developer, and he's with us today to talk a little bit about their new release and about the company in general. Thanks for joining us, Patrick. Can you start out, tell us a little bit about your background?
Well, my background has been very tech heavy. I've actually been in software development since I was actually in middle school. So um, every little endeavor or small business that I've been involved with has involved some sort of programming by me, and which kind of leads up to what I'm doing now, which is actually Fine and Dandy Games, and it's always been, I guess, since I've been started programming, my wish to develop games, and finally I decided to take the plunge, even though it was a bit difficult, and that's where I am now, is developing games for the iOS platform and hopefully other platforms to come.
Tell me more about Fine and Dandy Games and how that came about.
Well, it came about, actually I should start back in 2008 is when the iPhone, when Apple actually finally allowed third-party developers to develop on the iPhone. That's how I got into mobile development. I actually started with BlackBerry and iPhone at the time, and was developing pretty much just the normal apps out there. And I finally decided, well, I want to develop games, and maybe this is the right time to do it, as mobile games are seem to be taking off, and pretty much everyone now has a smartphone. I felt this was a good time to do it. So actually, in late 2010, I decided to take the plunge and register the company and actually start working on my first iPhone game, which launched earlier this month in August. And so I've been really excited about that.
So you mentioned your most recent release, Goop. Tell me, what lessons have you learned as an entrepreneur from the development and the release of that product?
What I've learned is marketing needs to start as early as possible. We basically, with that, we try to do it as early as we could, even before the application was available to consumers, which was probably about a month in advance. However, we realized that even before that time, we could have still gathered, and built up some more hype and popularity and following before that. And I think one key thing I did learn was, get as much following and marketing before the actual product's released, so the launch can go, a bit smoother than it would be if you wait till the last minute. That's probably the biggest thing that I've learned doing this project.
It seems like every company now has an app. Whether they should or not is probably debatable. But is it difficult to launch an app for a brand?
Yeah, it's pretty difficult. Well, the easiest part is coming up with the idea. A lot of times, especially for me, I'm a developer, so a lot of times I take it for granted that I can just develop something and put it in the App Store and hope that millions and millions of people download it, and I become a rich guy. But what I and many others have found out is that the App Store is just like releasing a product for any normal retail. You have to make sure the product is polished and finished. You have to know enough people know about your product, that it gets in the right hands. So the same difficulties do exist on the mobile platform and developing for iOS that do in any other business. So it is difficult. But there are things you can make it that do make it a lot easier, such as the fact that once you develop the application, it's just that one time. You don't have to continuously create new product, which is helpful. But it does have its difficulties, especially now with over 300,000 plus applications available. It's very, very competitive.
You've obviously embraced the concept of apps. What do you think the future looks like and the importance of apps to small businesses?
I see basically the future of apps as important, or even more important than a company having a website. Just because with a mobile application, and with everybody either having an iOS device or Android, even Windows Phone 7, you have the phone is pretty much right next to a potential customer at all times, as opposed to a website, they usually have to go find a computer, internet access. So being on a mobile device gives you a presence anywhere they are. You can take advantage of things like location-based services to even give them a richer experience that they otherwise wouldn't be able to receive on a traditional website. So I think it plays a major role, and it's probably another asset that most small businesses should or need to be looking at incorporating in the future, or even right now.
So we talked about you released your first game. What's in the works now for Fine and Dandy Games?
Actually, we're still focused on the release of Goop. As we've found out that marketing is continuous even after the launch. We're also hopefully working and going to push out an iPad version of Goop in the near future as well. So right now it's available on iPhone and iPod Touch, and have a bunch of ideas for some future games that I want to look at and develop, and hopefully time permits that I can start working on those and share them with the world as well. That's pretty much what's going on.
I'm curious, what's the difference between an iPhone app and an iPad app? I've seen some that seem to require 2 different downloads, and some that seem like the one app will do it for both.
Well, there's you can develop them as one specific file, or I guess one specific application, or you can separate them. The main differences between the two are, of course, is just the resolution of the screens. So pretty much 90% of the code stays the same. Typically, when it comes to a visually heavy application like a video game, the graphics do take up a lot of space on the device. So splitting it up is one way where you can lower the size of the application so that downloading it over 3G like most iPhone users wouldn't be such a hard task. And you have to dim it. There's actually a limit on 20 megabytes the file size can be to download it over 3G. So that's one reason to split the two up. But other than that, it's pretty similar.
Patrick, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.